I liked your point on the fundamental, like, first principles logic, because I
Yeah.
think about it a lot in the agency space. Like, a lot of the time, as you mentioned, there's this market lag between like when you know, your intentions and your actions and the results. Like a lot of the time, people will have like pretty strong fundamental assumptions and they'll be good and they'll be good foundational logic. For instance, like, hey, I'm going to, you know, they whip up a really good piece of outreach and then they send it to like 10,000 people and, you know, then they don't get any results. Foundationally, like their fundamental assumptions are really, really good and their logic is good. And if they had persisted for a certain period of time, they would have seen results, but they always just quit too early, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I read this once in a book. It's this really interesting book called Crystal Society, where like this like super intelligent AI is trying to like bootstrap itself. And so it sends like 10,000 emails. It's actually literally like it's an email thing. A bunch of cold emails to like development companies to try and have the companies build him something. He's trying to like lie about it. Anyway, long story short, sends 10,000. He doesn't receive any replies in the first day. And there's this line in the book that's like, I have yet to receive any replies. This may have disincentivized like a human, but my I'm confident in my foundational logic, so I will simply continue, or some shit like that. It was
I
just
love
so
that.
simple to me, and I was just like, oh, oh yeah, right, because that's what we do. So it just kept doing it, and then the next day it received like 400 replies or something. It's all just
Damn.
stats, right? Just
It's all
noise.
sad.
Yeah, it was super cool, man. You should read that book.
That is fascinating. It is true. Most people just give up, which is, I think it all comes down to the strategy. When you reason it from first principles and you're thinking about, you almost build the test case of like, what would be undisputable evidence that this doesn't work? The null hypothesis. And it'd be like, well, we would do ABC. We would reach out 5 times to a sufficient number of individuals, which we determine as size X over Y period of time. We'd iterate through Z offers. And only then would it be extremely unlikely it doesn't work. And then you're so right, bro, is that you can actually have the correct strategy, but that's not enough if you're not great on the input. And you can have great input and bad strategy, which is
Definitely.
almost worse, actually. Because that's where you enter the valley of despair, where you're working hard, but you're spinning in a circle. So it was funny. I remember, I was always skeptical of these roles. Like, when I was working in corporate, so I'm head of strategy. Like, what does that mean? And it's like, he had this one liner he'd throw out every now and again, which is was something like, a high degree of aptitude on bad strategy is worse than the other way around. And it was this idea that, because if you've got a bad strategy, it actually doesn't matter how good you are because it's garbage. So the strategy's got to be right. But then most people won't execute it anyway. So it's like the classic, you could have put Waze on Google's desk and they wouldn't have done anything with it because it's not about the strategy, it's about the execution. So I think it's a great way to think about it, man.
Yeah, man. The entire time you're talking about that, I'm thinking about like the first 3,000 doors that I knocked on. I had no strategy, and it was just like I'm not going to call it a complete and utter waste of time because it built a lot of emotional resilience in me, but zero output. Like zero. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have like any sort of like marketing package set up. If I just sat down and actually like looked at what other people were doing and like pre-validated some strategies, probably would have went like 90% of the way there. My foundational assumptions were not good. And then I just shat out 3,000 pieces of outreach.
It's one of the reasons I'm really grateful for our friendship, man, because we can challenge those assumptions in each other. And it often comes back to this idea of, when the 4-minute mile got broken? No one had ever broken it. They said it was impossible. And I think it was the year after somebody broke it, they were like, I forgot my number. Maybe Jamie can pull it up or something, but we had like 11 people broke it the next year because someone showed that it was possible. And nothing changed about reality, just what you believed was possible changed. And all of a sudden, they did it. So I think that's fascinating. You got to really push on that, I think.
It's not against the laws of physics. You can do it.
Statistically, people, like, again, if you're looking at it from an income point of view, really hit their maximum income in the mid-50s, I think, because they get all the compounding value of everything they've built decades before. But it's like the weird value that everyone forgets is that the work works on you as much as you do on the work. So you become, your income always trails several years behind your capabilities. So you never get a true one-to-one reflection of that. And you probably become someone who's going to earn a lot more money, but the reality hasn't caught up yet to your capabilities. That's often how it always works. So, which I think is really cool and learning. I mean, I always keep notes of the amount of times I cringe at myself as a good barometer of how much I'm growing. And if I'm not crunching enough, I'm not growing enough. So if I look back, like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Like, it's a great sign that you're heading in the right direction.
That's awesome.